In a time when gold and marble whispered secrets of divinity in every corner, there was an artist named Irene who stood underneath the grand dome that stretched towards heaven like an embrace from God himself, her structure born out of ambition as much as piety. Justinian's empire teemed with life and artistic endeavors beneath a sky painted by twilight, but for one weary soul in Byzantium, the night was her canvas on which she worked tirelessly to immortalize celestial beauty through mosaics that adorned sacred spaces within the Hagia Sophia. As Irene wielded her tools with a sense of purpose and reverence, a palette knife here, some fine gold leaf there, Chef felt as though she was touching eternity itself in each delicate piece. The workshop around her lay quiet beneath the vast expanse above. Only shadows played hide-and-seek on ancient stone walls, while Irene hummed an old Byzantine chant that spoke of glory and grandeur, a soothing melody to lull one's thoughts away from worldly concerns. The scaffolding around her reached out like the arms of God, offering support as she placed tiny tesserae with meticulous care onto earth-bound walls destined for heavenward ascension into sacred space, where divine light would dance through them come dawn. The faint odor of wet plaster mingled invisibly among dust motes that danced to a silent music only felt as the flicker from candles illuminated her work with an ethereal glow on gold tiles, shimmered like captured sunlight held within the folds of time. As Irene applied each piece and watched them merge into images more beautiful than reality itself, her golden lyre roaring silently, angels in mid-prayer reaching towards unseen heavens, she reflected upon her Emperor Justinian's grand designs for a church that would stand as both spiritual beacon to the faithful and testament of Byzantine might. Her fingers traced over motifs representing Christ Pantocrator, the mighty ruler, who watches humanity with compassionate eyes, holding out his bountiful grace like rays breaking through morning mist. She saw in this divine image her own small part to play within the vast tapestry of empire and faith. The night wore on as Irene's thoughts wandered from her work back to an earlier time when Justinian himself had walked these sacred grounds. His vision for a church grand enough that it would eclipse even Rome in splendor was no idle fantasy, but the fervent desire of one who saw Byzantium not just as capital city with earthly walls and gates. She knew all too well the empire's heartbeat pulsed through these ancient stones, each beat a promise that under Justinian's rule this realm would never falter in its place among the great civilizations of history. His reign was more than political power wielded over armies and provinces. It encapsulated an era when art wasn't merely decoration, but divinity channeled through human hands, where every facet of life mirrored heaven on earth. Or Byzantium, not just conquered by land or sea, but immortalized in spirit as well for all who would one day marvel at its legacy. With each carefully placed shard and speckle of gold leaf that joined the mosaic's intricate web below her fingertips, Irene felt herself weaving a thread into this divine tapestry, creating beauty to outlast emperors and empires alike. She was an architect, not just for buildings, but also constructing timeless grace and art. The nights neared as the candlelight dimmed with her own energy spent, yet Irene knew that when day broke and worshippers would come to bask in divine radiance reflected off these walls, they too were part of something transcendent, a mosaic interplay between human ambition for beauty and divinity's immutable presence. As the first rays of dawn reached across skies, Irene set her tools aside with reverence for another piece completed in this ongoing creation that would echo through ages, her story told not just by gold or stone, but whispered softly within every heart moved by its silent yet resounding glory. A tale where an artist named Irene found purpose and peace beneath the dome of Hagia Sophia, her hands guided to capture eternity. And with that thought held close like warmth against cold night's chill, she allowed herself one last look at what would be as morning's first light stretched lazily across Constantinople. Its touch was gentle upon the shoulders of those who had spent hours under the dome and beyond. Irene stood back to view her day's work with a weary smile. She felt as though each speckle of gold leaf added on that night's endeavors were not merely fragments but pieces of history coming together, like stars aligning in an unseen constellation named after the city itself. In this sacred place where time seemed to fold upon its own echoes, Irene sought solace and purpose beneath archways bathed in ethereal glows from 1,000 candles that no longer flickered with her touch but remained as silent sentinels of faith around the great Hagia Sophia. The air was still thick with incense, scents mingled within, blending seamlessly into Irene's own essence, perfume born from toil and passion for beauty in divine form. She had been here since dusk turned its last golden hue over the city skyline. Her hands were no longer just tools, but extensions of her spirit as she melded Earth's minerals into a visual symphony, each placement deliberate under Irene's unwarzerobious gaze. Her artistry was not merely to fill spaces with splendorous adornments, it sought deeper communion between humankind and the divine, an eternal dialogue captured in reflections of light on stone surfaces that would tell tales long after her voice had faded into whispers among ancestors. Murmurs. Irene often found herself lost within these hallowed walls. They were not just architecture, but a sanctuary where past and present danced, veiled by the mystery only art could unveil, while time marched on without fear or haste around her silent ballet of creation. Here in this cathedral-like chamber adorned with mosaics that held stories beyond words or story Irene was helping to tell through each fragment she delicately positioned upon the floor, a testament not only to skill but also transcendental connection between artist and artwork, where every reflection found its mirror in eternity. As her fingers traced paths of golden threads across tessellated surface, her choreography guided by an unseen hand that had led Irene here, through the labyrinths of time to this moment, when she could almost hear echoes calling out for beauty and legacy beyond life's fleeting breath. She worked with reverence. Every piece was a prayer sealed in permanence, as if her hands wove together not just piety but also threads that bound souls across epochs, ensuring their silent whispers would resonate through the ages within these hallowed echoes of Irene's touch. She took pride, too, in being part of something larger than herself, a continuum where each craftsman was a link to those who had come before her, and future artisans yet unborn, all entwined with purpose beneath this roof that cradled the sky itself at times when even clouds seemed curious about human endeavors. Irene's heart swelled as she pondered over how these walls would someday absorb more than just light, but also her essence, a part of herself immortalized in divine artistry, a legacy to be whispered through time like an ancestral lullaby hummed by hands long gone. The morning was slow and the world outside began its bustle, even as Irene's work continued untiringly. Her spirit felt interwoven with threads of gold that shimmered in harmonious hues against marble's cool embrace, a canvas where she could narrate tales without uttering syllable or script. In this temple to the Divine Mother, Irene found not just beauty but also peace, her pilgrimage through artistry's sacred ground that had drawn her here, as if by celestes calling across time's vast expanse. Irene looked upon what she called the hidden reflection, a section of the mosaic where light danced and shifted with the shadows, unveiling itself only to those who sought it, her secret chamber that promised revelations beyond mere visual delight. It was as if this part held Irene's own soul within its golden folds. Here in her creation lay a silent acknowledgement of humanity's ceaseless search for understanding amidst the vast, unknown cosmos where answers were not found but felt like gentle caresses against skin and spirit alike. As she approached this hidden gem, Moser tonight was special, for Irene had been entrusted with capturing in glass what mortals could not see, the hidden reflection within her divine mosaic world, an ethereal place where light played hide and seek behind the stones, revealing secrets to those who looked deeply enough. To find it was said that one must understand how eyesight extends beyond sight's reach, a spiritual journey into illumination and shadow both within themselves and in their successions around them. As Irene set her gaze upon this corner of the altar, she allowed herself to feel rather than just see the way light would caress stone before retreating behind its darkened edge afterward, as if respectfully bowing out from a conversation with mortals and divinity alike. It was an intimate exchange that only true seekers could understand. Tonight, Irene felt the pull of this section stronger than ever before. It seemed to beckon her soul directly into its golden folds, as if sensing she held within herself not just a gifted artist, but also a kindred spirit yearning for transcendence through creation. The mosaic's hues whispered secrets known only by the divine, and with tender hands Irene began to piece together fragments of glass that shimmered like stars, trapped in their own cosmic dance within this confined celestial realm. The reflections grew more complex as each tile was placed, Some pieces would catch light first while others waited patiently for the opportune moment when warmth from above kissed them just right, unveiling a spectrum that only those who dare to dream beyond their earthly confines could truly perceive and appreciate. As Irene worked, she remembered tales told by her grandmother, a storyteller whose voice was believed to carry the wisdom of ages through its melody alone, without uttering a single word about fear or sorrow. Instead, it spoke only in hopeful tones that comforted hearts like hers as they drifted into dreams. Her own hands began to move with an almost ethereal grace upon her canvas. Her grandmother's stories seemed woven within the very fibers of Irene's being, and were now coming forth through this mosaic in a language older than words, visions that painted themselves across surfaces for those who would listen without hearing. In moments where she paused, breathing deeply between motions, with each stroke imbued her spirit into something more profounder connection to the Divine Mother herself, as well as an acknowledgement of Irene's place within a lineage stretching back through time and across cultures. It was here, in this sacred space, that all mortals could sense their eternal bond. With every piece added, the hidden reflection seemed less hidden, her labyrinthine path revealing itself to Irene's touch as if she were the first of her generation, capable of understanding its complex beauty and subtle guidance toward higher truth through artistic expression. It was a pilgrimage not just for herself, but also one that invited others along paths they had yet to imagine. As dawn approached, streaks of crimson began to bleed across Irene's visioned world around her, blurred into shades of gold and amber, as if the very essence of twilight itself seeped through windows unseen by mortal eyes. She knew that soon it would be time for sleep, but not before this sacred place had become a bridge to understanding beyond what was spoken and ode hummed softly into existence. Irene stepped back and allowed her sightless gaze upon the divine tapestry of light ensnared within glass. She could feel its warmth against cheeks that hadn't caressed it yet, but which would soon do so as guardians came to witness this marvel at daybreak, or temple without walls, where every visitor sought not just visual pleasure or spiritual enlightened allure. As the first rays of dawn kissed Irene's cheek one last time before she turned away from her creation, a gentle warmth spread within as though touched by that same divine light. There was peace in knowing the hidden ref. Irene's fingers danced with an artist's grace as she traced her way through delicate brushstrokes, adding depth to the hidden ref, a sanctuary within glass that defied time and reason itself. Each evening spent in the silent communion of creation had drawn Irene closer not only to this ethereal masterpiece, but also deeper into an understanding she knew was beyond mere technique or skill. It seemed as though her soul's whisper guided every hue, leading the hidden ref toward a crescendo that promised enlightenment through the beauty of art. As twilight deepened and Irene continued to pour herself out into this divine creation before she knew its completion would ever be witnessed by eyes other than her own, these solitary evenings spent in silent dialogue with the hidden ref had become sacred rituals, a passage through which the veils between worlds grew thinner. Inside that crystal cathedral of light and color, where Irene worked diligently beneath flickering candles, casting dancing shadows upon her canvas, she felt as though every stroke was an invitation to explore realms untrodden by human foot or heart, a pilgrimage through the spectrums yet to be dreamed. The chill of night began its encroachment on Irene's skin. Goosebumps rose and fell beneath her layers as she felt the hidden ref's presence growing stronger within each pane, an aurora borealis trapped in glass, casting a soft glow that seemed to pulse with life. As the world beyond whispered tales of sleep through every window pane it dared let into Irene's secluded studio, her heart too began its rhythm towards slumber. She surrendered herself not just to the hidden ref, but also to night's embrace, a communion with both creation and cosmos. When the first light of dawn filtered through askew window cracks, each beam cutting across Irene's cheek like golden threads weaving themselves into her dreaming mind, she could almost hear the hidden ref hum in harmony, its glassy surface shimmering with an ethereal energy that promised renewal and rebirth. In the quietude of early morning, as a new day whispered secrets to Irene through golden fingers brushing against her cheek, this was when she would finally step back from the hidden ref, closing its chapter on night's tender gaze. Yet within that parting glance lay an unspoken promise between creator and creation, the eternal cycle of sunrise and shadow. With every brushstroke Irene had lent to this sanctuary beyond walls, where mortal eyes were not meant to behold it. She felt a piece of her own essence intertwining with the hidden ref, two spirits in silent conversation through the language of art, an unspoken dialogue that transcended words and ventured into realms only faith could fathom. As Irene wrapped herself within layers to ward off the creeping chill, her soul was warmed not by fabric, but by the hidden ref's radiant aura, as if each thread carried away any rumors of earthly cold and replaced them with whispers from that sacred place. Before she turned herself into restful oblivion under the watchful eye of countless stars, Irene allowed one final glance at the hidden ref, her touch upon its surface no more than a reverent caress, an acknowledgment to what had been gifted unto this world in silence and light. With each moment spent within that glass haven where reality seemed but a distant memory, Irene felt the gentle tug of sleep, not as surrender but rather as acceptance, for she knew her own rest would soon become part of the hidden ref's narrative, another chapter in its never-ending story. As morning's first light kissed upon Irene's cheek one last time before the curtain call to sleep, a profound warmth spread through her being, as though touched by that same divine radiance. There was peace within knowing the hidden ref would endure beyond its creator, an eternal testament whispering of beauty and truth. In this place where artistry became both journey and destination for Irene, she found a solace far greater than the mere act of painting itself. It had become her silent hymn to higher understanding. The hidden ref was not just glasswork, but also an echo chamber that reverberated with reflections untold. As guardians came forth at daybreak, those chosen few who knew only by word and rumor about the sanctuary in Chapter 5, as dawn stretched its rosy fingers across the skyline and bathed the hidden ref in a soft glow reminiscent of heavenly light itself, time seemed to pause within those sacred walls, where glass not only refracted but also held memories like prisons. Irene's hands had crafted more than mere art. They wove dreams and emotions into every curve and hue. She adorned the panels with her fingertips, as if each touch was a note in an unspoken melody that played only for those who truly listened, which included Irene. It had been weeks since the hidden ref's doors were last opened to the world. Evenings spent inside its glassy embrace felt like years slipping by, yet night after night, as she worked underneath a tapestry of stars and moons that shone through unseen windows in her mind, Irene had always sought solace not just within the hidden ref's beauty, but also the profound sense of peace it bestowed upon its beholders, even if those were few, like herself or others who found refuge among its walls during quiet moments when life's cacophony faded into muted echoes. On this particularly tranquil morning, as light began to creep over the horizon and paint it with shades of gold that promised a new beginning, Irene approached the hidden ref one last time before her departure from its haven. She had come here often in search of respite. Now she found herself at an impasse, not because there was something left undone, but rather due to the poignant realization that each visit would leave behind a trace upon which others might find their own sanctuary, like footprints on sand or whispers carried away by wind. As Irene's gaze traced her way along the hidden ref's contours one final time, the glass seeming to hum with silent approval at having been part of such tender human experiences as hers and those before, she could not help but feel a sense of interconnectedness that transcended individual existence. Her own story was now intricately woven into its many narratives. Her touch had added texture, much like the artistry around her told tales, without words yet spoke volumes to hearts in need of understanding and solace. Irene's journey within the hidden ref's walls would soon come full circle, as she knew it was time for her own curtain call upon this sacred ground that had soothed many a weary soul through its silent testimony, where glass became both the medium of expression and refuge from reality. Each morning brought forth new faces to the hidden ref's audience, guardians who entered not just with their eyes, but also carried stories untold, seeking solace within Irene's artwork that transcended mere aesthetic pleasure, touching upon something deeper within the human spirit itself, where beauty and truth intertwined. As she stood in silent farewell to the hidden ref's embrace, clutching her last piece of glassware close as though it were an extension of herself now imbued with part of Irene's essence, a final gift for the world beyond its confines, there was comfort found not only in knowing that she had been witness to moments so fleeting and yet felt them etched upon her very soul. Her presence, Then departures would become but whispers within the hidden ref's chronicles, stories told through reflections of light on glass, where time held no dominion, nor the need for permanence in physical form or legacy therein remained. Today marked yet another chapter to Irene's life, one that came with an embrace as gentle and reverent caresses upon her heartstrings, acknowledging not just what she had gifted into existence, but also recognizing how the hidden ref continued its silent hymn, a sacred echo chamber of souls interconnected through the eternal dance between artist and artwork, creator and creation, and with each sunrise that brought forth guardians to this hidden sanctuary where dreams were captured within glass panes, Irene found herself not just as keeper, but also inheritor, an integral thread in the hidden ref's ever-evolving tapestry of life, transcending the boundaries between artist and art forevermore. Within these walls that had become a crucible for both her craft and spirit, Irene knew she was leaving behind more than just glasswork. It was as though each piece carried fragments of time itself within its refracted depths, where every observer could find their own reflection amidst the kaleidoscopic memories. As guardians arrived, they too became as twilight whispered its way across the hidden ref's threshold on that particular evening. An air of expectancy seemed to envelop everything within those sacred walls where time and art danced in a delicate embrace. Irene stood before the latest edition, a piece she had lovingly named Whispering Echoes. This sculpture was not merely glass. It felt like holding fragments of history. Each curve whispered secrets from eras long gone to those willing enough to listen with their eyes and hearts. In this chapter's tender narrative unfoldment, Irene found herself in deep conversation with the guardians who had arrived at her doorstep, fellow artisans bound by a common thread of destiny woven through the hidden ref's legacy. Their voices were low but resonant as they shared their own tales intertwined within glass and light. Each anecdote became part of Irene's growing repository, enriching her perception beyond the tangible to where art was not just seen or touched but deeply felt within one's soul. As night unfurled its velvet cloak around the hidden ref's domicile and stars began their dance in the heavens above, Irene retreated into solitude among her creations, each piece a silent testament to those who had come before her yet stood as monuments of potential futures. In an instance where time seemed suspended within this glass universe, she paused by whispering echoes, and with the first drop of morning dew rested upon its surface, Irene felt it, a shiver that traveled down to her core. There was something profoundly alive in their communion. This connection between artist and artwork transcended mere creation for preservation within the hidden ref's realm where dreamers found solace under glassy skies, as Irene unearthed a latent ability to perceive the ephemeral essence of time encapsulated in her craft. As she tenderly restored and shaped another piece, this one more abstract than tangible, whispers seemed to emanate from its surface, echoing through the hidden ref's air, resonating with a frequency that hummed along the edges where glass met reality. Guardians would come at dawn or dusk now as they always had. Yet within these moments lingered an evolving narrative between Irene and her guardian kin, one of shared visions for the hidden ref's legacy, intertwined destinies that blurred the lines where art became a living testament to communal spirit. As dawn broke through on this day like never before in whispering echoes, Irene sensed an unspoken dialogue unfold within its depth. Reflections of her own journey and aspirations flickered across as though the glass itself was alive, a silent witness to their shared voyage. The morning had greeted not just guardians but also visitors, each drawn by the hidden ref's uncanny ability to capture moments in time through artistic expression. Some were seekers of solace and others mere spectators caught within the kaleidoscope that Irene helped curate. One visitor, a child with eyes wide as moons under her brows, carried an innocence too pure for this world's complexities, yet understood more than many in its ephemeral nature. She saw whispering echoes not just refracted glass, but the very soul of creation itself. Her story was Irene's legacy, a tale that would travel forth beyond the hidden ref, for within her touch upon each piece lay fragments more potent than mere memory or reflection. It became about connection and continuity across time's boundless expanse as she imbued the glass with echoes of moments both joyous and somber. As Irene prepared to greet this new day, a profound sense that the hidden ref had become more than just a refuge for art, but also an altar where past and future were consecrated and present deeds lingered around her heart like the fragrance of jasmine. With every guardian's arrival came not only their own tales to be woven into this mosaic legacy with each sunset that cast long shadows through prismatic windows, but also a promise, an assurance from Irene herself and the hidden ref's unwritten chapters of artistic evolution. Today marked not just the passage of another day within these sacred walls where guardians had become custodians, stewards to this legacy in which they all were so intrinsically entwined. It was an acknowledgment that the hidden ref, as dawn crept upon the city beyond the hidden ref's walls like a hesitant lover peering over its shoulder, Irene greeted her colleagues with eyes that held stories of their own, guardians who had become custodians not just in title but spiritually to this legacy. They were art keepers and history's teller within the sanctified halls, where every echo promised connection across time's boundless expanse, as she whispered promises into each glass masterpiece that now held more than refractive magic. They contained a piece of everyone who had ever been touched by the hidden ref. Irene felt herself to be an integral thread in this tapestry when her fingers traced the cool surface of whispering echoes, and she knew it was not just about preserving history, but ensuring its evolution continued within these sacred walls, with each sunset casting shadows through prismatic windows that danced across the hidden ref's courtyard like silent applause for the guardian's dedication. The first to arrive at dawn carried an aura of resolve. Samuel had been amongst those chosen by Irene when she herself was the novice art curator, eager and untested, as he now stood before her with stories that wove into his very being like roots intertwined within the earth. He spoke not just of glasswork from forgotten epochs, but also of personal journeys, tales where love blossomed in adversity's shadow or sorrow soared to realms beyond human comprehension, and it was as if each story he shared became a thread Irene could weave into her own legacy. The second guardian arrived with the sun high above. Marian's presence resonated like silver bell chimes in harmony with Samuel's earthy timbre. Her tales spun around themes of discovery and rebirth, each anecdote a phoenix rising from ashes. Whether it was Irene herself finding her calling amidst the chaos that once threatened to unravel everything they held dear, or fellow curators whose ideas had birthed movements within art itself. By midday, Thomas strode through the hidden ref's stores with a stoic grace born from years of standing sentinel over their shared purpose. His stories were not so much about the triumphant moments as they were poignant reminders that every masterpiece held depth beyond surface beauty, like looking into water and seeing reflections forged in sorrow, joy, or wisdom. His narrative was a gentle tide lapping at Irene's resolve to never let their guardianship lapse with complacency but rather evolve as the world around them changed. As afternoon waned toward dusk, Eller joined them. Her youthful exuberance painted tales of passion and defiance against societal norms, for it was here, at the hidden ref, where Irene first learned to see art not just with eyes, but hearts open wide enough to embrace the multitude within each piece. Her narratives spoke a language that transcended age, reminding them all that their shared legacy would forever bridge generations and ideologies. For what was created under these walls bore witness even as history unfolded beyond its panes of colored glass. Thrice had Irene's touch graced each piece, once to capture the essence within her soul, twice with Samuel's own memories mingling through every facet, and now infused by Marian's tales of reinvention, their stories creating a symphony that resonated not just in the hidden ref but would echo into eternity. It was as if each piece held a mirror to the past, present, and future simultaneously within its depths, Irene's legacy interlaced with those who had come before her while inviting new narratives of hope from emerging custodians like Eller's spirited heartbeats, ensuring that the hidden ref would forever serve as a beacon where the guardian and artistry evolved in perpetual dance. As twilight approached, Irene stood before whispering echoes in Chapter 8 of our tale unfolded within the hidden ref's walls, where history and art intertwined in a delicate dance led by an indomitable spirit named Eller. Her heart was as vibrant as her ambitions to bring forth the echoes from times past into the present conversation, through her own creative endeavors inspired at this very sanctuary of expression. The hidden ref, where Irene's legacy thrived and lived anew with each brushstroke Eller dared. One evening, as twilight descended upon them like a gentle shroud, the artist Amelia found herself before Whispering Echoes, her most personal piece that encapsulated decades of change witnessed from within the hidden ref's embrace, not just in color and form, but also through its soulful journey across time. It had stood there for years as a silent guardian, watching the reflections on society mirroring into itself, with every era's visage it held up to scrutinize under Irene's touch, now shared by Eller's own hands. And tonight would be different. This painting was about to sing. Amelia approached cautiously, as she always had, her fingertips grazing the cool surface of whispering echoes. Tonight felt heavy with significance for both artist and artwork alike since Irene's departure from their midst, a legacy left unfulfilled yet resplendent in its potential. Amelia knew that touch had power, an initiation into understanding beyond mere perception. Tonight was her invocation of dialogue between the canvas whispers and Eller's spirited heartbeats echoing through the hidden ref. Gazing upon whispering echoes, Amelia closed her eyes for a moment, letting Irene's vision merge with Samuel's memories, once captured in sepia tones of tradition and now imbued by Marian's reinventions within the canvas. Eller had been inspired to create something wholly original. The whispers began as Amelia delicately placed her brush against whispering echoes, a soft stroke here, an intuitive blend of hues there. She felt Irene's spirit guide her hand with the gentlest touch, but Eller's heartbeats pulsed through each movement. The studio hummed as Amelia worked late into night, inviting Samuel and Marian to witness a rebirth that honored their predecessors while projecting forward visions of hope onto whispering echoes. The trio watched in silence, an unspoken agreement forming among them. Eller would infuse her narratives within the painting. This was where they could all contribute to Irene's dream, a perpetual tribute that evolved with each custodian of art and time at the hidden ref. As Amelia layered upon layers, pigment mixing stories into visual symphonies, Samuel's presence grew subtle yet palpable. His memories interwove through the strokes, a personal touch that reminded them all how deeply art could connect lives across time and ideology. Marian's tales of reinvention added vibrancy to Amelia's careful blending, her energy transforming into colors as she danced from canvas to easel with graceful abandonment born out of passion for change in society, a stark contrast against the backdrop where Irene's soul had once been entwined. The studio was filled now not just by voices, but also by an atmosphere charged with shared experiences. Each person at the hidden ref brought something uniquely transformative to Eller's vision for whispering echoes. Samuel, a man of his times, and the echoes they carried, Marian, who redefined their understanding of artistic reinvention in ever-changing contexts. Amelia now stood as custodian, not just at Irene's legacy, but also embraced her own journey to reflect on society's reflections through a kaleidoscope that turned with the shifting light and shadow across whispering echoes. When dawn peeked over the hidden ref, Eller stepped back. Her heart swelled as she beheld not just what was before her, but felt Irene's spirit whisper within each stroke of color that told tales both personal and universal through the eyes of Samuel's memories intertwining with Marian's reinventions now captured by Amelia's touch upon whispering echoes. It was here in this sacred space where art transcended time. In Chapter 9 of Whispering Echoes, Eller found herself enveloped in a golden haze as she closed her eyes, letting Samuel's memories and Marian's reinventions weave into an intricate tapestry within the canvas before her. The studio had become not just a place of physical creation, but also one where time folded upon itself. Every brushstroke was both yesterday and tomorrow. The first rays of dawn filtered through sheer curtains, casting a warm glow over Eller's workspace as the night shifted to daybreak. Within the hidden ref's walls, her metamorphosis witnessed not by eyes but felt in waves across one consciousness. As her vision began taking shape on canvas after hours of silent communion with Irene, Samuel, Marian, and Amelia's spirits joined the dance of transformation that had begun as shadows grew longer into nightfall days ago. Eller's hand moved deftly over whispering echoes, her brushstrokes a symphony orchestrated by shared wisdom, carried on each breath and heartbeat within the hidden ref's sanctified confines. Samuel, with his deep appreciation for the past melded into every hue he touched upon canvas. Marian's reinventions that questioned art itself through bold contrasts of light and dark shapes. All came together in an opus where each stroke narrated stories untold but deeply felt nonetheless. In a corner stood Amelia, her gaze never leaving the vibrant spectacle unfolding across whispering echoes. Her journey was one of discovery, a custodian who sought to understand Irene's vision and preserve it through every medium she touched. The woman's hands became extensions of herself as they traced lines, blended colors with tender care that neither shy nor bold but always true, were infused onto the canvas by her touch alone. The studio was a living entity, no a cocoon from which emerged not just paintings and sculptures, but also dreams taking flight in pigments of every possible emotion, blending into an eternal chorus that resonated with Eller's heartbeat as she worked alongside the echoes. The laughter shared over brushstrokes on canvas days was now a distant memory carried by dust motes dancing through sunlight, streams an ode to every fleeting moment, preserved in time within whispering echoes. As hours passed into moments and Eller's masterpiece neared completion, the room seemed to exhale round her. A hush fell upon the hidden ref's occupants as they felt an unspoken understanding their collective efforts had birthed something that transcended individual expression, but was inherently personal. Samuel found himself standing beside Eller now, not just in spirit, his presence a comforting echo of encouragement for her to trust the flow between past and future encapsulated within whispering echoes. Marianne's reinventions had taken on life, as if each were an eternal question posed by society itself for reflection, that art was not just a mirror, but also windows into possibilities. And Amelia, with her heart intertwined in every layer of paint and texture she applied to the canvas, stood back at last. Whispering Echoes had become more than an homage to Irene. It became itself a vessel for voices that spoke when words failed them, but colors did not. The sun reached its zenith, casting a spotlight on Eller's work as the final strokes were tenderly applied by Amelia's hands with silent reverence of her journey intertwined within whispering echoes. The studio was a living being that had absorbed every shade and sigh into its essence. Irene, Samuel, Marian, they lived on in the whispers carried by each brushstroke, voices from a time before when society sought change through artistic expression now echoed back to them as Eller's masterpiece came alive under the hidden ref's watchful eyes. As dusk approached and painted its final hues upon whispering echoes, the collective energy within the hidden ref began winding down, a quiet settling in like dust after stirring it up just enough to bring forth life where once there was stillness, or testament that art is never truly finished but eternally evolving. Eller's heart swelled with pride and gratitude as she realized the legacy of whispering echoes would now ripple in this very moment. Within the depths of whispering echoes, history itself seemed tangible. It hummed through Irene's laughter lines etched into canvas, skin her spirit's echo resonating with Amelia's heartbeat as she worked beside her sister. Samuel's passionate cries for change were no longer silent, but alive in the texture and hues of Eller's creation. His fervor mingled within every stroke that brought forth Irene's visage, a woman whose voice had once challenged societal norms through art alone during a time when her era sought profound transformation. Eller's grandmother, Marian, with eyes reflective of wisdom and sorrow alike, seemed to watch over from the shadows. Each brushstroke brought clarity into forgotten years gone by, a reflection on how personal histories were as much a part of collective memory within art. The Whispering Echoes wasn't just about Irene, but was indeed an anthology of experiences, emotions, and dreams that the trio had shared throughout their lives in this very room where they felt unbound by time or societal expectations, or sanctuary for self-expression that transcended mere art. As night approached its dominion over daylight's realm, Eller noticed a peculiar warmth emanating from her canvas of whispering echoes. It was as if the piece had grown sentient in the dying light, every color whispered to be alive and eager for eyes like those who came before them. Irene's spirit seemed almost tangible, watching over Eller with prideful approval, her vibrant energy intertwined within every shade that now appeared as though pulsating beneath the surface of paint, layers or visual symphony created by Amelia's skilled hands, guided yet unwedded. Eller felt a connection, like threads weaving through time to bind their shared past with her present journey. Samuel's fiery spirit for change and Marian's quiet strength were all encapsulated within the art legacy that whispered of resistance against silence in times when words alone did not suffice. And as Eller stood there, she realized this was more than just an heirloom piece, but a bridge across epochs where her own voice could join those who came before and after. Whispering Echoes had become their chorus through time, or testament to the power of art in holding history's breath while painting its echo into eternity. The last light flickered, casting elongated shadows that stretched across her work like fingers reaching out from a dream state as Eller's thoughts wandered back through memories her grandmother Marian recounting tales of yesteryears under the hushed glow of candlelight. Irene's laughter ringing in defiance against societal constraints during her solemn gatherings where art and conversation flowed as freely as wine. Samuel's passionate speeches echoed through Eller's mind like a clarion call for change that never ceased to inspire a torch passed down generations within the family's lineage of artists. As she added her final touch, Amelia whispering sweet nothings into Irene and Marian's portraits as if they were present in the room with them. Their spirits felt so near that Eller could almost hear the sigh of relief when Samuel found his voice amidst a world too often deaf to reason. Each stroke, each hue seemed an act of remembrance or homage, not just within this studio, but across time itself, as the hidden ref absorbed every emotion and memory into its essence like it was nurturing life in the midst of dormant earth, awaiting spring's touch to bring forth blooms. As her brush moved, Eller felt an invisible thread being pulled taut her connection not just between generations but through time itself. She had been chosen for this moment when history and art wove together in silent conversation, as whispering echoes began to hum with life unseen. It was a harm the afternoon light streamed in gently across Eller's workspace as she stood back from the easel, where whispering echoes took shape, each stroke encapsulating not just memories but souls intertwined with hers and those of her ancestor scion, Samuel. Amelia. Irene's spirit danced in defiance within this very room. It was the laughter that once filled these walls during salon gatherings where art flowed as freely as conversation and wine poured unabatedly to satiate both thirst for knowledge and liquor alike. Her eyes twinkled with mischief, challenging norms in a society too often blindfolded by its own rules. Her defiance captured on canvas through vibrant colors that spoke of rebellion and freedom found only within the sanctity of artistic expression. Samuel's passionate voice resonated even now as Eller brushed life into his portrait. It echoed a clarion call for change, stirring hearts with urgency to act a legacy imbued in oil that transcended time and spoke directly from the past, inspiring future generations of artists. Amelia's touch remained palpable as Eller tenderly added soft whispers into Marian's eyes. It was a sweet nothing-scape painted through hues of twilight blues mingling with amber sunsets, or silent conversation between lovers who felt so close that their presence in the room seemed almost tangible, like an invisible thread being pulled taut and connecting them across centuries. As Eller continued her work on whispering echoes, she sensed a deeper connection with each of these souls, an ethereal guide through which histories intermingled within the strokes before her eyes, as if brush in hand was not merely an extension, but also a conduit for ancestral whispers. The studio seemed to breathe and sigh around them. It felt like nurturing life amidst dormant earth, awaiting spring's touch or seasonal awakening into which the spirits of Irene, Samuel, Amelia were eagerly drawn as they had been centuries before Eller ever set foot in this room. The canvas began to hum with a presence unseen yet felt deeply within her bones. It was an energy born from history and art woven taut through a silent conversation that transcended generations without uttering a single word aloud, as if time itself had been folded into the essence of this painting. Eller's hand moved not just with intention, but also awareness that she stood on sacred ground, where echoes reverberated through her every fiber and fed back to animate Irene's laughter in defiance within whispering echoes. As the shadows lengthened, Samuel took shape more boldly, his visage a beacon of relentless passion that could awaken souls asleep underneath layers of societal complacency. His eyes glimmered with an intensity born from centuries of striving, her torch now in Eller's care, and she felt the weighty responsibility to honor his legacy through every deliberate line drawn across canvas realms. Amelia's portrait flickered into existence, her gentle nature encapsulated within a world where only whispers were heard but which spoke volumes of unconditional love that transcended time. Her tender embrace between two spirits, Irene and Marian's ethereal forms hovering around Amelia as she painted their shared affection. The intimate connection was palpable in every stroke Eller laid upon the canvas. It wasn't just an echo of past whispers, but a continuation of the man-living testament to enduring bonds that not even death could sever. The studio, now dimmed by evening's approach and filled with elders who had once been artists themselves or simply witnesses to the unfolding tapestry before their eyes, watched in silent reverence as Eller weaved a narrative of lives lived fully within her artwork. Within the canvas realm Eller had tenderly cultivated over time stood Amelia's visage, a mirror of innocence that belied an inner strength. She wore wisdom like her own private jewel, eyes soft but unwavering, revealing tales not told aloud but painted with strokes as light and deliberate as the fall's first snowflake upon Irene's cheek or scene Eller had witnessed in Samuel's youth when they shared his fervid dream of changing worlds. Amelia now held that same torch, her spirit flickering to life with every dab and line. She was the legacy he yearned for beyond societal constraints, a testament woven through time by Irene's laughter, a soundless melody in Eller's mind, as vibrant today as it once filled Samuel's heart. The studio became an altar of remembrance and hope on this night, where past met present. The walls themselves echoed with silent applause for a tale told by two souls intertwined through decades. Her story Eller was now entrusted to complete as she reached out across time, her brush guided not just by sight but vision. As shadows played among dust-covered easels and forgotten sketches of yesteryear's whispers, the atmosphere grew thick with anticipation for what revelations tomorrow might unveil. For tonight Eller painted an ending that promised a beginning as she traced Amelia's features against Irene's. And then there was Marian, her spirit now but colors and light within another painting. The canvas vibrated with their shared essence of love so profound it spilled over like warm tea upon cold liner, tender embrace that defied time itself to hover around Eller as she captured not just Amelia's visage, but also Irene's soul. They were companions in spirit, and Marian's presence was a silent vigil during the night, her own life unfolding parallel within another work of art where love never faded beneath layers of earthly grief or sorrow, an eternal dance of hands clasped across eras as if time had but to pause for their union. The studio, though filled with elders whose eyes were well acquainted with the weight and texture of painted stories, held breaths that spoke volumes beyond words. They knew Eller's gift was not just one woman's journey through life replicated on canvas, but a shared voyage between souls where every emotion, etched in paint, became as real as flesh. Herein lay their collective legacy, an unbroken chain of lives lived fully, each stroke carrying the echoes and whispers that resonated within Eller's own heartstrings, inviting her to weave a narrative not just about those who came before, but also an artful testament to what could still be. As night deepened its hue over whispering echoes, the elders regarded their plot with quiet pride. They had sown seeds of creativity that blossomed into a garden where each petal unfurled in time's tender grasp, revealing Eller's own unique spirit intertwined within her portraits. The past became as present here, a sacred tapestry she now embroidered with threads plucked from the loom of memories and hopes alike. Every line of verse sung in honor of those who painted their essence into history, inviting Eller to extend that legacy beyond life's final curtain. Eller's brushstrokes became her words as she captured Samuel once more, this time not just his eyes, but the very core of what made him fearless in love and art. A reflection so vivid it seemed he would rise from canvas to stand beside Irene, there, laughter blending into one symphony that transcended generations. Each portrait was an invocation for courageous hearts who dared dream beyond silence, their visual anthem, where the past's echoes inspired futures yet unwritten and souls still awake in wonder. As Eller's brush moved with a delicate yet determined touch across the canvas of time, she found herself inching closer to completing her magnum opus, her chronicle, not only celebrating those who had lived, but also inviting souls still dancing on life's stage. It was during one such evening that an unexpected visitor arrived at Whispering Echoes, a child from the village, Lucas, carrying with him stories of his grandfather Samuel and tales woven into every threadbare cap he wore, tales Eller had not heard before but felt were essential to her narrative. Lucas approached cautiously as if afraid that mere words could disturb these sacred memories. Yet, in their shared silence, a silent understanding began to blossom between them. It was Samuel's courage and love for his craft during the war years, a time when art became an act of rebellion against oppression, that deeply resonated with Eller's own convictions about her work as immortalizing portrayalities within a living history. Through Lucas, Samuel's vibrant memories came flooding back to the village elders, their faces etched in lines of respect and recognition for his bravery during trying times, when art was not just an expression, but survival itself, her legacy they had overlooked until now. The revelations stirred something profound within Eller, as if she were a conduit through which the past could reach out to touch her present and guide it into futures yet conceived. Eller's brush continued its rhythmic dance on canvas after canvas. Each one became an homage not only to Samuel's undying spirit, but also served as testamentary vessels for those other untold stories carried by the village elders who now saw their histories preserved through Eller's art. Her portraits were no longer mere representations of physical forms, they had become bridges across time and space that connected her with souls long past, but whose energy still coursed within whispering echoes' walls as if echoed in the very air they breathed. One moonlit night, Eller found herself painting late into a canvas titled The Heart of Resilience. It was here she decided to capture not just Samuel's visage, but also his spirit, how it endured through war and peace like an indomitable flame flickering against the wind. As her brush traced lines that seemed almost alive, Eller felt as though every stroke infused a part of herself into this portrait. She was no longer just painting Samuel's story, but also inscribing it upon her being, with each color and contour laid down on canvas until there stood before her eyes not an image, but the embodiment of courage. Within the heart of resilience, a young girl from another era, Isabella painted during times when art was clandestinely shared in whispered gatherings at nightfall to kindle hope among those subjugated under oppressive regimes, was rendered with strokes that were as subtle and strong as the legacy she left behind. Eller's brush revealed Isabella's eyes alight with determination, her posture defiant yet serene against an era of shadowed faces. It was a portrait not just remembered, but reborn through artistic revelation, or silent testament to unwavering spirit in the face of darkness. Eller's journey led next into memories that spanned across continents, where she captured images from cultures of foreign times when those societies experienced their own trials by fire or famine. She painted a mother whose gentle eyes held an ocean deep with sorrow for her lost child during the floods of 1927 in Mississippi, but also flickered with hope as seen through her unwavering smile to visitors, telling them that strength is found not only within blood ties, but shared humanity. As Eller's work grew more intricate and expansive over time, the community began seeing themselves aimed not just figures in a painting or names on walls, but as vibrant threads woven into whispering echoes' ever-evolving tapestry of life. Her art spoke to everyone who entered its halls. It whispered stories that needed telling and invited visitors from afar to walk through time, hand in hand with the spirits residing within these walls, or place where every shadow held a memory. Each echo was love lived out loud by those long gone but forever present. The chapters of Eller's story continued as she delved deeper into her own essence, intertwined with that which came before and after. It became evident to as dawn approached, with its soft blush of morning light filtering through whispering echoes' ancient windows. Eller stood amidst her latest creation, her vibrant mural capturing a bustling market scene from Morocco during the time when spice traders were as essential to life in cities across Europe and Asia. Her brush danced on canvas with confident strokes that told tales of connection through trade, linking disparate worlds where people's lives intertwined like threads within a tapestry, a testament not only to the enduring spirit, but also Eller's belief in unity as humanity's greatest strength. The market was alive with sounds and colors, merchants hawking their wares, children playing amidst piles of ripe fruit that smelled like sweet promises hidden within everyday life. Laughter echoed off the cobblestones, where women chatted in hushed tones about family news while men argued passionately over politics and philosophy. Ella had captured it all the way sunlight played on woven textiles, how shadows stretched across skin as people moved to a rhythm only their hearts could hear. She brought forth the essence of life within her artwork that transcended time and space. In each meticulous detail lay Eller's hope for understanding amidst global upheaval, or world weary from war, disease-plaguing nations as it had done before in times past, but always with a will to rise anew. The mural was her way of saying that people everywhere shared these struggles and triumphed together. It told not just stories of what Eller saw or learned abroad during travels, her brush never restrained by geography nor limited only to images. It embraced emotions felt in heartbeats around every corner as well. As the community gathered for its annual exhibition opening at Whispering Echoes, Grand Hall, whispers of anticipation threaded through murmurs that filled Eller's ears, her symphony composed by her peers and patrons who had been moved before to see what she created. Each painting was a chapter in an unfolding narrative where every viewer became both reader and participant. This year's theme, as decided upon months earlier when planning commenced post-summer's solace at Wispra, echoes nestled between two hills shrouded by ancient forest canopies, whispered with secrets of old souls that had once trod the same paths history and hope intertwined. Eller's eyes, usually brimming with visionary zeal for her artistry, when she stood before a crowd or worked on canvas late into night under flickering candlelight, shone dimly this evening as sleep beckoned soft fingers over tired muscles. Even in the quiet moments prior to opening's commencement, there was no denying how much her art echoed within these walls. Its reverberations spoke of shared human experience across continents and through generational threads. The mural by Eller now took center stage as patrons approached with curious eyes that sought out connections in the intricate patterns where stories from distant lands flowed seamlessly into tales local to Mississippi's own flood-ravaged memories. They saw themselves not just reflected but woven together within whispering echoes. Brand tapestry. Eller, heart lighter with each nod and smile of acknowledgment, received her silent gratitude for understanding that had been so long sought after, found solace in the embrace this art provided to her own journey through life's ebbs and flows as well. It was a healing balm wrought from colors, textures, experiences shared across borders. As night embraced whispering echoes with its velvet darkening of skies studded by countless stars, a reminder that light too can come after darkness if one only looks for ways to see it within and without itself. Eller retired her brush, content knowing the artwork would continue conversations long into sleep-filled nights when dreamers might find their own stories reflected back at them through images painted in hues of understanding. The mural stood as a guardian against forgetting histories that shaped lives, her visual anthology, where every stroke held memories and each color was an emotion felt. It invited souls to traverse time within its walls, not just for themselves, but also generations yet unborn who might seek refuge in the artwork's ability to connect them with their ancestors. Joys and sorrows. Eller knew her work had become more than paint on a wall. It was now part of something larger, an eternal dialogue where humanity. Eller stood back and surveyed her creation one last time before nightfall would cover it in darkness. Once again her mural, born from a journey of discovery, an expression of shared human experience across cultures that transcended its own immediate surroundings. Tonight's moon hung low as if to bless the finished piece with silver light. Eller felt her heart swell within at the sight before her eyes. The mural depicted a grand tapestry where threads of every color represented intertwining stories from distant lands, or visual representation that celebrated diversity and unity alike. In its center was an open palm embracing a multitude of faces. Each visage held depths Eller had never known herself to possess until she met these silent storytellers whose tales weaved into her own narrative, teaching lessons about joy found in unexpected places as well as pain endured by many. As the day's work came to a close and shadows stretched across the ground like long fingers reaching for one another, Eller noticed something peculiar, a pattern emerging within chaos that seemed almost sentient. It was subtle yet unmistakable in its intent, as if each character had been placed with purpose by hands other than her own. And so she began to feel a strange kinship with the subjects of her mural, an invisible thread connecting their histories and hers through time itself. She found herself lost for hours at once within this reflection on life's fragility amidst its beauty. Eller was reminded that while every ending marked by nightfall could also signify new beginnings as dawn approached, her promise of light after darkness. In the mural, she saw her own journey mirrored back to her with striking clarity. The vibrant greens and yellows symbolized growth and hope. Blues danced like waves that carried wisdom from ancient mariners navigating unknown seas together, just as Eller now sailed through uncharted waters of self-discovery. In the mural's corner, a solitary figure stood silhouetted against an encroaching storm, a representation not only of hardship but also resilience, for it was here that she found her own story too intertwined with trials to be overlooked amidst brighter moments. The artwork whispered secrets across ages, inviting those who passed by into a shared embrace where the past and present could commune in silent understanding without words spoken aloud. The mural became more than just pigments on plaster. It evolved to become an anchor for Eller's solar place of respite from her own internal storms that raged like tempests, threatening to overwhelm at times when doubt-clouded judgment and fear loomed too close. Here, in the heartbeats captured by strokes bold or delicate as butterfly wings against a summer sky, she learned patience for herself. Time itself seemed stretchable within these walls of color where every second could last an eternity, if one simply looked deeply enough into its depths. Mural was both mirror and window to her soul. As the night deepened further around Eller's resting place, she realized that this artwork would serve not just as a personal sanctuary, but also as communal touchstone, where strangers could find common ground in their reflections of themselves within its embracer's silent conversation between observer and observed, transcending language barriers. The mural stood resolute against the encroaching dark, safeguarding memories from being lost to time's forgetful march. It was a bridge over troubled waters connecting disparate shores, where once there might have been divides too wide for passage, or legacy of understanding that could ripple through generations if only one had eyes open enough in heart and mind. Eller knew now, with certainty born from the day's revelations within her creation's depths, this artwork was part of something immensely larger than herself alone, an eternal dialogue that would continue its course long after she retired her brush for good. The mural had become a guardian not just against oblivion, but also as an educator to those who sought solace within its folds. Here were lessons of empathy and compassion imprinted upon the very air that circulated through Whispering Echo's corridors. And when finally Ella slipped beneath layers of blankets, her body weary from a day spent in service to something greater than herself, to history itself, she whispered gratitude for this gift bestowed upon her by the silent voices that guided each stroke across canvas and stone. The mural was more significant in Chapter 16 of our tale, woven through time and hues on canvas. Eller's hands moved with a reverence born from her soul's communion, tracing patterns that whispered secrets only to those who would listen closely enough with their hearts as well. As nightfall draped its velvet mantle upon the sky outside Whispering Echo's Museum of Art and History in New Haven, a sense of completion settled within Eller's chest. Her day had culminated not merely with another layer applied to an ageless mural, but with unspoken conversations flowering into existence. Her latest contribution, her vivid portrayal merging the ancient civilizations that once flourished where now stood a modern metropolis, symbolized by faded yet resilient echoes of their essence embedded within her artworks. Very fibers were not just to be observed but felt. Eller had imbued each brushstroke with stories and sentiments from epochs past. The mural now spoke directly to those who sought solace in its depth, inviting them on a journey of introspection through empathy's lens. Eller knew this piece would become her magnum opus, or testament, not only to artistic skill but also as an educational tool for the ages that followed. She had designed it with care, each element meticulously chosen so every visitor might find a pathway of self-discovery within its confines. The mural was indeed more significant than just color on wall. It now stood guard over lost tales and silenced voices seeking acknowledgement in the present day's often too brisk pace. It served as an educational beacon, guiding wayward thoughts towards understanding and compassion with gentle nudges rather than blunt intrusions. Tonight was a night of quiet celebration for Eller, time when her heart found harmony in the act that had become both meditation and prayer to nature's uninterrupted cycle, where every retiring sun marked an awakening not just within herself but also along with history's enduring narrative. As she stood back from her day's work for a final time before succumbing to sleepy surrender under the comfort of down-filled blankets in her modest New Haven abode, Eller felt as if each brushstroke was an echo reverberating through eternity itself, her legacy left behind not just on canvas and stone, but within the very soul that had given life to these visual symphonies. The mural became a living testament. Its presence now seemed almost sacred, standing sentinel over fleeting moments of human existence while simultaneously bridging worlds apart by time itself, her convergence point for all who wandered through Whispering Echo's corridors with open hearts and minds. As her own heart beat in tune to the rhythm of history's continuum, Eller whispered a silent gratitude. It was as if she had uncovered an ancient language spoken by colors on canvas, their dialogue now interwoven into human experience through empathy's thread. The museum visitors might depart with their eyes glazed over the mural's grand tableau, but within them stirred a current of introspection and understanding uncharacteristic for someone merely passing by an artwork, or as if they had journeyed backward in time to witness firsthand those civilizations that once embraced similarities between cultures long lost to conquest or forgotten progress. And so it was with each day's end. Eller found herself returning not just as artist, but also a chronicler of humanity's intrinsic capacity for connection and learning across the chasms wrought by time, legacy engraved upon an immortal canvas that she had come to know so well. As sleep embraced her like warm fingers, through cool night air, Eller dreamt not just about art, but of life itself, in those visions woven from the very essence of shared human experience as timeless and universal stories etched into our collective history that resonated beyond spoken word. For as long as whispering echoes stood resolute against time's march, Eller's art would safeguard these tales within its walls, ensuring they whispered to those who might listen with the stillness of heart and soul, or silent dialogue across ages that promised unity in diversity. And when at last she awoke from her dream-laden slumber under the comforting arms of mattress clouds softened by down, Eller knew there were stories yet to tell within this mural's embrace, for history was not static but alive. As dawn's first light crept through Eller's window-pane like a hesitant whisper of day, she felt an awakening within her soul, a resonance with history that had become more tangible than ever before. Each stroke on the mural seemed to pulse backward in time, as if drawn from another era's essence into today's reality. Eller knew this was no mere coincidence, but rather a call beckoning her deeper still. And so it began. Chapter 17 of Whispering Echoes, with the graceful precision that had become her trademark, Eller's brush danced across parchment and plaster alike. She sketched a scene where an ancient marketplace bustled with life, or tapestry woven from threads of countless cultures. The air was thick with the scent of spices that carried whispers of distant lands, mingling in harmony as merchants bartered and stories exchanged hands, without language to confine them, but feelings understood by all who gathered therein. Eller's heart found solace among these visions. It seemed she could reach across the chasm that separated her from those long-forgotten souls, sharing in their laughter as though they stood mere feet away beside a simmering pot of stew and flowering baskets. The mural, before coming to life, was not just an artist's work. It became Eller's bridge across time itself, for through this silent communion with spirits past, the present felt less alone beneath its weighty history. It wasn't long into her journey when she found herself standing within a grand palace courtyard of Babylon, under moonlight's tender glow, scene where music and dance united people across social divides, as one might find at any modern-day party, but with an otherworldly elegance. The rhythmic steps seemed to echo through eternity. The very ground was alive beneath her feet in a harmonious celebration of existence itself, for stark contrast against Eller's own solitary night that now felt filled with invisible companions from ages gone by, their joy infectious and shared. In another vision within this mural-bound odyssey through time's embrace came an intricate African village where the drumbeats set pace for a community bound not just in place, but spirit or unity so strong that it hummed with life even as darkness cloaked them outside their earthen homes. The children played beneath tall baobab trees, laughter bubbling like clear water from spring wells. Here was camaraderie, and the simple pleasures of being human echoed in each heartbeat around her, a stark reminder that at our core beats a universal song connecting us all despite diverse tones. But it wasn't merely scenes within civilizations lost to time Eller painted upon this mural. She wove into its depths the essence of humanity's capacity for growth and understanding itself, her thread stretching from every corner where wisdom was shared, learned, or passed on through generations. And as if by magic spun not just in pigment, but soulful threads invisible to any eye save Eller's own, she portrayed the world united before her brush strokes could ever touch canvas. A vision of humanity where differences were celebrated and all cultures understood one another beyond mere tolerance. Their symphony played on heartstrings that resonated across time's expanse. Each day brought with it fresh visions to explore. Eller found herself amidst the hustle of medieval European markets, feeling every touch upon her shoulder or hand, as though she were truly there amongst chattering voices and clinking coins of sense that in those bustling Alice-lived stories still relevant today. She saw a Viking raiding party not with fear, but curiosity for their fierce resolve against odds. The boldness of exploration was something even modern humanity could learn from if only they looked back into history's mirror to see themselves reflected therein, a lesson in courage that transcended time. And as she worked, her own story began threading through these visions like rivers flowing toward the ocean. Eller found herself not just an observer, but a part of this ever-evolving history, painting itself upon her canvas every day and night, her brushstrokes guided by whispers from ages gone before. One evening, as twilight's embrace brought coolness to the air outside Whispering Echo's mural studio in Florence, Eller took a pause at an unfinished part of her creation, a scene where diverse Eller's brush hovered above her palette, an extension born from years spent in dialogue with history and color alike. She dipped it lightly into the azure hues that promised to bring stormy seas beneath calm skies on this particular part of Florence's tapestry. She remembered how these streets had once echoed under armored footsteps, where merchants hawked silks beside whispers about treachery in Nordic fjords, or place she visited not as a mere spectre, but with her heart open to the narratives woven into every brick and cobblestone. As dusk began its descent upon Florence like velvet, Eller added final touches that spoke of unity within diversity. Figures from different eras shared space on her mural, or Viking warrior standing shoulder to shoulder with a Renaissance painter beside an unassuming 1960s flower child. Each had their story, and yet all danced together in the same frame, suggesting that time was but another thread to be woven into art's eternal fabric. Her fingers traced over each character on her mural, or Viking with eyes like polished emeralds set against a palette of earthy tones he wore as armor, an artist whose brush seemed guided by muses from both Florence and far-off lands, wherein lay the essence that transcended time. The flower child's smile was tender yet defiant, her beacon for change whispered through generations to come, but never forgotten in its present form of peaceful protest against societal norms. Eller paused and closed her eyes briefly, letting history seep into the marrow of her bones, as it did when she stood amongst these people who shaped worldviews, their struggles for freedom etched deeply within their stories, which had found a home upon Eller's canvas through shared colors. Her mural was no longer just about painting. It became an act of remembering and honoring, touches that resonated with the soul's need to belong not only in her present, but across countless yesterdays as well. As night embraced Florence like a lover's arms around its beloved muse, Eller turned away from her mural for one last time before stepping out into the cool Florentine air chill that reminded of another chapter in life's vast chronicle, which was always unfolding beyond studio doors. But then she felt a presence at her side as if drawn by an unseen thread, and Eller looked down to see Marco Rossi, the antique dealer whose tales had often been threads woven into her artistry over shared espressos and ancient relics alike. His eyes held memories of Florence that were never lost, but simply awaited rediscovery in a new artist's vision. Marco spoke without prompting. "Your mural is more than just history, it's the heartbeat of our city." And Eller knew he was right as she felt his gaze upon her creation that encapsulated so much beyond mere sight or touch. It embodied emotions and connections transcending time itself. The next morning, with a mural completer testament to the beauty found in differences where once there might have been fear of the Eller, looked back at Whispering Echo's studio one last time before she stepped into her new chapter beyond Florence's storied borders, but always within its embrace. She had not merely painted a scene. Eller and Marco, with their shared respect for the past's influence on present-day courage, solidified an understanding that would continue to flourish like history itself, or symphony played upon heartstrings resonating across time's expanse as they ventured forward into tomorrow. In this mural of Florence and beyond, Eller found her place not just in paint, but within the continuum of humanity's story, an ever-evolving history painting itself with each new day that came to be a part of art for all who were willing to look closely enough and heart open enough. Eller's journey had been unexpected and profound, her friendship with Marco now blooming like the rare night-blooming jasmine in Tuscany's gardens, her delicate yet enduring beauty that thrived under moonlight, just as their newfound understanding of artistic expression blossomed through shared silence. As they walked along Arno River's banks toward her departure point from Florence, Eller and Marco paused to reflect on the journey ahead while watching boats glide silently beneath the Messine that seemed so serene yet brimming with life's perpetual ebb and flow. It was here, in this moment of tranquillity amidst their teeming thoughts about the future, where they realized how intertwined art had become within themselves, a duet whose melodies transcended time without need for spoken words or shared language born not from dialogue, but mutual respect and understanding. Eller felt her spirit lighten with each step away from Florence's embrace. The city's cobbled streets beneath Marco's steady presence was like an anchor keeping their spirits afloat in a sea of unknown tomorrows, its ancient stones whispering tales of courage to those who listened closely. Yet, even as she prepared for her departure into uncharted waters beyond Florence's reach but always within the echoes that danced along this historic river city's waltz or muralist was born in Eller, and Marco found their place, not just in painting or music alone, but eternally intertwined with each other as they navigated life together. This journey had begun for both of them on separate paths, where one sought to capture the essence of Florence's soul upon canvas, while another delved into melodies that could make even angels weep. Yet now their destinies were entwined like ivy climbing along ancient ruins. The world had offered many opportunities for both Ella and Marco. However, none as transformative or profoundly personal as this shared voyage of self-discovery through the medium that was closest to each hearth, their artistic expressions mirroring one another's soul in vibrant strokes against time's canvas. As they continued their walk along cobblestone paths, past Duomo and beneath Florence cathedral archways adorned with stories of piety and devotion echoing through centuries since Michelangelo left his touch upon the Sistine Chapel, felt her spirit soar like a lark at dawn's first light. Her artwork had transcended mere visual appeal. It embodied an emotional resonance that bridged time, connecting souls across ages while celebrating Florence's rich history through every color she chose, and each line of the mural itself her legacy to inspire future generations just as past masterpieces inspired her own. Marco had always been Eller's steadfast guardian against doubt that sometimes shadowed creativity, his silent support a lighthouse guiding through stormy seas. In turn, she was the tempest he feared, unleashing her force of nature, both fearsome and beautiful. The city's vibrant tapestry around them bore witness to their unique bond born from artistic endeavors, as two halves of a whole seeking solace among masterpieces that whispered secrets into the hearts willing enough not just to look but hear. A muralist had found her place in history, and with Marco by heart. Together they reached Eller's next destination beyond Florence's storied borders, yet always within its embrace. A humble studio nestled on cobblestone alleys of an unnamed city, where dreamers sought refuge from the mundane world or sanctuary for created souls, just as Whispering Echo's studio had been to Eller and Marco. Here she would begin her new chapter beyond Florence, but always within its embrace, a place ripe with potential canvas that awaited not merely paintings of landscapes or portraits hidden in time's folds. Her muralist was born here too, where art became the vessel for stories whispering between brush strokes in a city draped with dreams and whispers of history, where cobblestones bore tales as old as time itself. Eller found solace in her new haven, her humble studio that seemed like it had been plucked right from the heart's deepest yearnings. The walls around her were not merely surfaces but canvases pregnant with potential. They hungered for stories waiting to be woven into existence through each deliberate stroke of paint and passion-infused pigment. As she set foot in this sanctuary, the air seemed charged with creativity and energy that had been absent from her soul back home amidst Florence's grandeur, but never forgotten within its embrace. Here lay a place ripe for transformation, not just of space and color, but also where dreamers like herself could shed their skin to become something more profound than flesh and bone. They became art itself. The studio was small enough to feel intimate yet grand in spirit if one allowed themselves fully within its walls. Murals on the adjacent buildings stretched toward her with silent invitations, beckoning her hand forward as she envisioned a mural that would echo through time long after any of them had passed, her own legacy intertwined forevermore with history's embrace. Marco stood by Eller's side, his presence both grounding and uplifting. He was the steady pulse in her artistic heartbeat, but also a reminder that creation itself held an echo of unpredictability, tempestuous sea where waves could rise to touch or retreat into forgotten depths. With Marco's guidance through Florence's masterpieces, and now as Eller began this new chapter, the duo discovered that together they wove more than just art. They crafted a shared narrative of love, Fear, inspiration, and resilience are visual symphony composed on walls for those with eyes to see beyond mere pigment. Throughout days spent in this new-found refuge amongst the like-minded spirits that also sought an escape from reality's relentless march forward, Eller felt her story unfold across surfaces meant not just to be seen, but experienced in her sensory journey through texture and tone as well as color. The city outside whispered tales of old with every breath she drew in. The people who meandered by carried themselves like walking exhibitions that inspired both frustration and admiration within Eller's heart, fueling her desire to encapsulate emotion on a grand scale beyond mere canvas confines. Each mural began as an idea or a spark of thought about what it meant for them personally or historically in the broader spectrum, how their lives intersected with those whose stories were etched into history's vast tapestry, much like her own and Marco's experiences had been woven through Florence. Eller delved deep within herself to find symbols of strength that resonated as deeply today as they ever did in times past. Her phoenix rising from ash or the steadfast oak standing tall against relentless winds became recurring motifs, embodying rebirth and resilience amidst adversity. One evening, a chance encounter led Eller to an old man sitting on a bench in what seemed like any other city park, but felt different somehow, as if its very air held secrets of forgotten yesteryears or untold futures waiting patiently for revelation through her work alone. His eyes carried the weariness of too many stories and not enough time to tell them, yet they glistened with a spark that seemed unfazed by age's relentless march forward, a stark contrast to Eller's own youthful exuberance, but also an echo she felt within her heart. They spoke little. Instead, their hands found each other as if guided not just by fate or chance, but a deeper connection that transcended mere conversation and ventured into the realm of understanding without words or silent dialogue formed between soulful touches on Eller's cheek, where she could feel years coursing through his veins like whispers. It was Marco who urged her to paint what lay before them. He saw in that encounter an untold story begging for expression, a tale of two souls meeting under the watchful gaze of history itself, for a moment captured not just on canvas, but within their very spirits as they stood together amidst whispered promises and silent vows. And so it was decided. Eller would begin her masterpiece with an image that blossomed from this singular encounter, a visual narrative rooted in the connection between two hearts, her own and Marco's, intertwining like delicate threads of color upon the room was steeped in twilight's gentle glow, a serene backdrop to her creative endeavor as she began layering hues upon canvas. First touches mimicked his eyes, deep and mysterious azure lakes set within the landscape of an untamed soul. The shadows seemed eager for expression too. Eller's hand danced across the surface with a reverence that belied her youthful exuberance, as she captured not just their physical likenesses but also echoes of shared secrets and silent pacts they had made in those moments when time stood still. As night deepened, Marco's presence became almost tangible within the studio walls. His essence wove itself into Eller's art like watercolors blending on wet paper, unpredictable yet harmonious patterns emerging organically from her touch and vision. He watched with eyes that saw beyond sight as she worked tirelessly, driven by a love so profound it transcended the need for spoken language. His own hands had long since ceased to write words, but found solace in crafting small tokens of affection, or bracelet here, an inscribed watch there. Eller's brushstrokes grew bolder as dusk turned into night's embrace, while Marco stood silently by her side. His presence was a comfort that warmed the studio with its quiet strength and unworn zero-ken assurance of protection over their shared dream, an invisible shield against any who might disrupt this fragile blossoming. His touch upon Eller's shoulder during moments when shadows threatened to swallow hope felt like homecoming or promise renewed in each tender caress that spoke volumes more than words ever could convey between two kindred spirits intertwined by fate and passion under the watchful gaze of history itself, their story now a testament not just on canvas, but within every heartbeat shared beneath its boughs. And so as Eller added final touches to her painting, her whispering wind captured in curls that caressed Marco's cheek and lips where he pressed his own against hers tenderly, an eternal kiss of fleeting moments encapsulated forevermore upon the pigmented expanse before them. The image blossomed, a living tableau of their connection radiated outward from its heart with vibrant threads that wove through each stroke and shade, or visual symphony birthed by two souls intertwined like delicate strands within color upon the canvas. echoing Marco's hand-carved wooden ring nestled beneath Eller's sable locks. The room seemed to hold its breath as she stepped back, her eyes tracing every line and curve with a mixture of pride and love that swelled in her chest like an unseen tighter portrait not just of Marco, but the very essence of their shared humanity embodied within each meticulous detail. It was complete, yet it felt as though they had only begun to touch upon its depths, for what lay between Eller and Marco transcended mere artwork or moments frozen in time. It existed where words faltered, but emotions flowed unimpeded through shared glances that spoke of lives intertwined like ivy around an ancient stone. In the muted glow cast by a solitary candle flickering atop her easel, Eller felt as though she had captured something indescribably precious, a moment suspended between two worlds where passion and artistry merged seamlessly to narrate their shared existence in silence that thundered louder than any voice daring enough to try. Her masterpiece wasn't just a painting. It was the story of them, unfolding upon canvas with each stroke a visual sonnet composed by her soul laid bare for all who would dare enter its depths and hear beyond mere color on cloth what truly lay within. Love that defied convention, artistry born from passionate hearts beating as Eller brushed away a rogue stroke of cerulean blue from her canvas, a remnant that dared to challenge its perfection. Candlelight danced across, casting shadows like fleeting spectres in an ancient hall where echoes seemed as much part of the walls as they were once whispered into them. In this sacred space between creation and completion lay a silent understanding. Every stroke on her canvas was imbued with their shared essence, a duality that defied simple explanation, yet demanded to be told in colors more vivid than words could ever hope to achieve. As the candle teetered upon its perch like an altar of warmth and inspiration within Eller's haven, she allowed herself a rare smile at her own audacity to capture not just moments but emotions that transcended time itself in this silent language between two souls. She had sought to tell the tale without utterance. Each detail meticulously rendered bore witness to an unspoken narrative of devotion and artistry blending into a tapestry woven with threads softer than silk, yet strong enough to hold their stories within its folds, as if Marco's essence had been embroidered alongside her own. The night stretched onward like the endless sea they loved towed for their journey, punctuated by shared glances that spoke in volumes of yearning and serenity intermingled with a subtle longing for more than just physical presence, but an existential union where every glance told tales as old as time. Eller knew she had yet to fully encapsulate the magnitude of their bond within her work's silent sonnet. It was incomplete without his brushstroke or counterpart born from a heart similarly entangled in this intricate dance between two beings whose essence sought solace and understanding beyond mere existence. Within the quietude that enveloped Eller, she found herself reflecting on their first encounter under twilight's tender glow, the very moment when fateful eyes met across a crowded room to share an unvoiced connection, so potent yet gentle it felt as though they were destined. Each memory brought forth more nuances that needed capturing, and with every thought of his touch upon her heart came the need for its representation on canvas or visual echo, inseparable from their shared experiences, woven into a narrative without words, but brimming full of silent poetry between them. As dawn threatened to break through Eller's window-pane that served as both guardian and gateway, she resolved not only to complete the painting from Marco, but also her own understanding, to delve deeper within herself, where raw emotion intermingled with creative expression in a harmony of hues. She imagined him beside her at work, his hands mirroring movements born from an intimate dance they had begun beneath shared stars, guided by nothing more than the heart's direction and unspoken promises that needed no voice yet demanded to be heard loudly through their artistry upon canvas, or testament not just of affection, but also a silent homage to what lay between them. And so Eller continued her work in solitude, with each calculated movement across the blank space now felt as an extension of Marco's absent presence beside her, guiding invisible hands where she needed only their shared vision for direction. The portrait that was taking shape became not merely a depiction, but also a pilgrimage through emotions and memories, or silent testimony to two souls whose narrative transcended mere artistic expression or fleeting human connection. It encapsulated the very essence of life itself within their bond, forever etched in oils, as if time held no dominion over what they had built together. Amidst this reverie and creativity, entwined with passionate yearning for completion both artistically and Personalieller's brush found a rhythm that resonated deep within her heart, each stroke relieving the depth of their relationship as she sought to honor it beyond what was visible in mere form. In this act of creation lay not just an endeavor toward closure, but also towards understanding. For every line drawn upon canvas and memory etched into being promised a revelation that transcended artistry, reaching outward like ripples across the surface where their story lived on her visual lullaby composed by Eller's soul laid bare in colors only meant to be understood through shared glances between two people whose bond spoke volumes beyond what words could ever convey. As night receded and daylight began its subtle intrusion upon her sanctuary, the final touch of a stroke was placed, or closing gesture that felt as though it completed not just an artwork but also their shared journey, until now Aunt Eller stood motionless before her canvas for a moment longer than necessary as she took in every detail of what lay on it, colors melding and separating with each stroke, telling tales that words could scarcely touch upon. This was more than artwork now. These were the memories they had woven together. The golden hours light spilled through her window, casting a warm glow over the canvas, as if to bless their endeavor, a silent acknowledgment of its significance and sacredness in preserving what once thrived between two souls desperate for permanence amidst impermanence, just like life itself. Throughout this chapter's creation within Eller's mind, the narrative continued to unfurl as she thought back on their shared moments of laughter and tears. How they had danced under starlit skies until dawn painted them with its rosy fingers, time when every heartbeat was synchronized in joy or sorrow. Ella remembered standing atop a hill overlooking the sea, her hands entwined within his as he spoke of dreams that stretched beyond horizons and into eternity. How their shared gaze upon it all seemed to mirror infinity itself, her promise sealed with eyes locked in silent agreement. With each brushstroke, Eller sought not just closure, but also an understanding she had yet to grasp fully, an epiphany that crept closer within the folds of her chest as memories swirled around like Edda's court between two rocks, a revelation made manifest in hues and shapes laid bare upon canvas. She felt every emotion, love's fervor or sorrow's pang surging through her fingertips, or conduit for the essence of their connection that time could not erode nor distance diminish. In this act of creation was a tribute to them both. It became Eller's homage as much as his, bridging between two hearts whose union had been one with life's own ebb and flow, or testament carved in oil that sought permanence amidst the transient nature of existence. Their shared journey, now immortalized through color and texture, was a pilgrimage they embarked upon together, each step an indelible mark on their combined soul's canvas. Eller's artwork became both lighthouse for lost ships at sea and beacon guiding her toward the shores of self-discovery. As night began to recede once more into morning light, its first rays timid yet determined, as they broke through heavy clouds that had enshrouded them in darkness just days before Eller placed a final stroke, its weight felt deep within her bones. This closing gesture sealed their shared journey not merely upon the physical canvas, but also etched into Eller's spirit. The story of two lives intertwined became as much about what they had been to one another and for each other, love's labor immortalized in paint. A silent narrative that spoke volumes beyond words ever uttered between them. It was an ode crafted by Eller's soul laid bare upon the surface of her creation, a visual lullaby composed through shared glances now captured forever within frames, and memorous or testament to their bond transcending mere artistry, touching instead on something far deeper, understanding that stretched its roots into every facet of Eller's being, a revelation not just for herself, but also as a gift they had unknowingly bestowed upon one another. With this final brushstroke and the quiet shake of her head, Eller realized she no longer sought to finish what was left incomplete between them, for in doing so would have been an attempt to mend beyond reach. Instead, she found peace as their story continued within each shared glance across time's vast expanse. Their artwork became a vessel for his essence alongside her own spirit, now set adrift on the tide of life's unpredictable currents, a reminder that while they might part ways under separate skies, the love and understanding they had sown together would forever echo within their hearts. As Eller's brush lay finally still in solitude once again upon her easel, she felt a quiet resolve settle over her. For even as darkness retreated to make way for light yet one more time, that very date was the end of this chapter, and perhaps also an interlude between chapters not soon forgotten. The narrative had evolved from mere paint on canvas into something far richer, a bridge across years where once there might have been chasms too wide to cross. In Eller's artwork as twilight's last gleam faded into evening's embrace and Eller stood before her easel, she felt a gentle tug at her heartstrings, a reminder that every end is but an overture to another beginning. The canvas in front of her awaited the next layer. Tonight it would not be just brushstrokes intertwining hues and textures, for Eller intended something more profound this time around. A year had passed since she last painted with Julian, but their essence seemed to transcend mere physical presence, their shared energy that now hummed in harmony within the very air they breathed apart yet together still felt as one under moonlit skies and sun-drenched afternoons. The studio was quiet except for a soft tick of Julian's antique clock, marking time's passage with an unwavering cadence that now seemed to mimic her own heartbeat, steady yet ready for the next surge into creation and revelation. Julian had been gone from their shared space since he set sail across distant oceans, his absence a catalyst in Eller's journey towards self-discovery, artistic evolution, and understanding of life's vast tapestry that neither could escape nor fully comprehend alone, but together might have. In solitude lay the seeds for an unspoken narrative to unfold her story, not bound by paper or digital medium, where Eller's pigments would speak volumes in a language beyond words, rich with shared experiences and silent understandings etched into their being like constellations across her skin and soul. As she dipped the brush back into cerulean blue, a color that had often adorned Julian's own canvases when he painted to remember or dream of it, Eller let sigh escape gently, an acknowledgment not only of his absence but also a homage to their shared history. It was in these moments she found her resolve. Each breath drawn and released would be imbued with love for the man whose laughter still echoed within her chest's walls as vividly as it had upon that final, fateful day by the lapping shores of a sea they once promised to explore together. The stroke across canvas began deliberate yet somehow instinctive. Every line and curve was not just an act, but also felt like retelling tales, where in her heart resided a mosaic piece reflecting fragmented memories, echoes of laughter between friends turned lovers now silhouetted against the backdrop of time's relentless march. It wasn't merely about capturing a visage, but rather encapsulating an essence that thrived in their synchronicity, where Julian and Ella had danced under stars, where they shared dreams beneath ancient oak boughs, whispering secrets only to them as the wind carried away youth's innocence. Their love was a living organism. It pulsated within her being, with each touch of cerulean blue a testament not just to what had been, but also an echo of futures yet painted in strokes born from hope and memories that refused the tyranny of loss's finality. Eller allowed herself a moment wherein she envisioned Julian standing beside her once more as they watched sunsets ablaze with colors unseen to all eyes, but their own, a hue not yet discovered on nature's palette or within human artistry, that spoke volumes of the world's beauty and its transient whispers. As night deepened into velvet darkness, a constellation seemed birthed from Eller's hand as she sketched stars across her canvas, or celestial homage to moments shared under canvases awash with twilight colors, where their fingers traced patterns in dust and dream alike. She added touches of vermilion for passion, a dash of emerald green signifying growth both personal and united they had embraced within the sanctity of her heart's gallery. Here was an artwork that bore not just two souls, but also one soul, a singular entity pulsating with love's indomitable force even as she faced him alone. A soft knock at Eller's studio door roused a startled silence, and upon opening to find Julian standing there in the dim candlelight casting shadows that seemed almost spectral against her easels, glowing promise of creativity and unexpected twist wherein even time could not dictate their reunion. His eyes reflected an oceanic depth born from distance traveled, yet his heart remained anchored to Eller's spirit, akin to how Eller and Julian's hands found each other in a gentle clasp that spoke of shared secrets without saying a word, as if their fingers had been waiting for this touch since they first met under twilight skies. In her studio, where colors danced with memories upon every canvas, Eller drew back slightly to face him, her heart's sanctuary revealed in the depthless gaze of Julian's eyes that mirrored both a world beyond and within reach. "I never expected this," she whispered into his ear as her voice trailed off like an echoing promise, "this unexpected journey." The studio was filled with their artwork, or testament to time spent in pursuit of beauty amidst the chaos outside its walls, where city lights flickered and hearts sought solace. Julian smiled at Eller's words that tugged gently on his soul, reaffirming an unspoken bond forged through trials, both mundane and profound, an alliance of spirits intertwined in the eternal quest to capture fleeting moments before they slip into oblivion. "I am here," he said softly, as if his presence alone could bridge any distance between them, "here for every stroke you've laid upon this world." Their hands brushed against one another across her canvas of vibrant hues and delicate charcoal outlines that told tales older than time itself. The night outside seemed to pause in reverence as they stood before the masterpiece, a confluence where two lives became indistinguishable from each other, blurring into a singular essence of love's unyielding embrace amidst strokes that held their shared histories. Eller's fingers traced through her own work as if to reaffirm its existence in the physical realm, while Julian gazed upon it with eyes still wide from the revelation, his heart resonating harmoniously within Eller's artistic creation, or celestial homage birthed not only on canvas but also between two souls. "It's as though I am holding you in my hands," Julian murmured against her cheek, feeling every curve and texture of the painted sky where stars were born from his own imagination under Eller's guidance, their constellation that seemed to pulse with their collective heartbeat. Eller pressed a reassuring kiss on his forehead, as if sealing within this moment an infinity, her touch imbued with the warmth of shared memories and dreams yet unwritten in life's grand tapestry, a love potent enough to transcend time itself. She took Julian's face between hers, their lips met tenderly upon skin that had learned resilience from battles fought side by side, a comforting whisper against the backdrop of her studio where passion and growth were painted in vermilion reds and emerald greens alike, a spectrum as complex as love itself. "I am home," Eller confessed to Julian's enraptured eyes that held within them an oceanic depth, reflecting both the journeys traversed together across continents of thought and emotion, where he stood anchored in her spirit like a lighthouse grounding his wayward ship, or presence as reassuringly constant as Eller's own. As they turned to face one another with eyes alight, Julian reached for the amber vase upon the window-sill that caught the last of sunlight filtering through half-closed shutters. He delicately lifted a handful of sand and allowed it to cascade down their fingertips, or mosaic as intricate and beautifully chaotic as Eller's artwork, each grain holding stories untold that had journeyed with them from distant shores. Their hands joined together once more upon the canvas of twilight colors, where they found solace in shared silence, their dialogue beyond words spoken, by heartbeats resonating through Eller's studio walls and into eternity itself, crafting a love so profound that it seemed to paint its own existence within every fibre of their beings. As night deepened further with the promise of dreamless sleep at bay, they took turns recounting stories woven from threads both delicate as spider silk and strong enough to bind worlds, or tale where even time could not dictate their reunion under her sanctified studio's glow. Their fingers continued dancing across each other's skin, tracing patterns born of connection deeper than flesh or blood, a tactile symphony that resonated with the gentle humming sound of nearby creeks. The night wrapped around Eller's studio like a velvet blanket as they continued their timeless dialogue through touch and shared silences, each moment heavy with unspoken understanding that filled spaces between heartbeats in place of spoken words. Their fingers traced the contours of one another's hands, their silent language only hearts could speak fluently, a tender exchange where every brushstroke on Eller's canvases seemed to find echoes within their own palms and foreheads, as if imbuing them with colors that were felt more than seen. Julian found himself lost in the sensation of her fingers against his skin, her feeling so profoundly unique it was almost otherworldly, a warmth not just from Eller's touch but also an emanating energy, as if he could feel time bending around them like light refracting through rain. He closed his eyes and let himself sink into the present moment, where their intertwined fingers felt less foreign than comfortably natural, or tactile connection that seemed to transcend all barriers between souls. Their hands moved in a slow, deliberate rhythm across Eller's canvas-stern blanket of love and dreams. Each touch was an affirmation, every stroke on the textured surface spoke volumes about their bond, or story so intimate that no words could ever encapsulate. In this sacred space, where past mistakes seemed to dissolve into nothingness with nightfall's softening hues, they allowed themselves a vulnerability only shared hearts know, letting go of fear and embracing the raw essence of their love without reservation or reticence. As Eller's fingers glided over Julian's hand in what felt like an intimate dance across time itself, her touch that seemed to weave moments together as one continuous thread Her own heartbeat fused with his through the warmth of their joined palms. She whispered a name so soft it barely disturbed the silence around them. Julian's lips curved into an understanding smile, and he answered in kind, their names melding like watercolors on wet paper, leaving behind trails that would forever remain imprinted upon Eller's heart as vivid hues of their shared journey through life, a testament to the beauty forged by two souls entwined. The night deepened further into obscurity with stars, blinking awake in acknowledgment, her celestial audience bearing witness to an earthly love that defied all boundaries and constraints, existing only within this tender sanctuary of shared existence, a bond untouched by the passing sands beneath their feet or the tides whispering secrets against distant shores. As they lay together upon Eller's bed, her simple structure now transformed into an altar to love's eternal flame, he felt as though this night was but one chapter in a lifelong story that would continue with each sunrise and every heartbeat, unwavering through the ebb and flow of life. In their shared silence, where words fell away like petals from bloomed roses, they found solace not just within themselves or even Eller's studio walls, but in a love that transcended these temporal confines, her connection so profound it seemed to paint itself across the canvas of time. As Julian traced patterns on her hand with his fingertip, their fingers creating art more intricate than any masterpiece hung upon Eller's studio walls, he felt a calm settle in him like dew at dawn that promised solace and unwavering strength even as the night deepened its embrace. When they finally surrendered to sleep's call, or tender sigh escaping Julian before his eyelids flutter closed with an ease born of contentment, Eller's touch lingered upon him like a warm evening breeze that spoke softly against the cheek, assuring comfort and presence even in absence. Their dream-filled slumbers were interwoven threads within one another's subconscious, or dance between realms where every sigh was as significant to their love story's continuation as any spoken declaration or shared laughter, a sacred communion sealed by the unseen bond that linked them beyond this mortal coil. And so, in the stillness of Eller's studio, refuge for two intertwined souls whose hearts beat not just together, but one and the same within her tender embrace, they found a love as enduring as time itself, an eternal story that painted its own existence across every fiber of their beings, resonating through each shared silence like echoes in hallowed chambers. Julian awoke to an overwhelming sense of peace as his body surrendered to sleep's gentle call, leaving him in its embrace with only memories and dreams for company on this final night together before their journey began, a voyage that promised the unknown but also whispered promises of eternity. As he lay there beneath Eller's tender gaze, his heart found solace not just within her soothing presence or in the quiet hum of history resonating through time's endless corridor. It discovered a newfound strength born from love itself, or fortitude that surpassed all fear and uncertainty. Their shared dream-filled slumbers had been as intricate and delicate as Julian's handcrafted works, each sigh between them sewing the fabric of their souls closer with every breath they took together in sleep's silent symphony, a communion that transcended words or gazes to reach directly into hearts where no distance could ever sever. As he recalled Eller's touch against his cheek, Julian realized it was as if she had woven her essence not just within him, but intertwined with every fiber of their being, a shared existence that echoed through each dream and reverberated beyond the confines of time itself, a sacred bond untouchable by passing years or fading seasons. Julian's mind, once cluttered with doubts and fears about what lay ahead for them, after parting ways to fulfill their destinies or journey he had been compelled to embark upon since childhood, as Eller's unyielding spirit was his constant guide through the labyrinths of life, now found clarity in her enduring strength and love. It became evident that no matter where this path took them, or how vastly different their lives might become, if their souls were forever entwined within a tapestry woven by fate's own hand, as they had been from the first delicate touch of summer rain upon Julian's cheek when he was but 10. As dawn began to spill its golden hues through the curtained window, painting Eller's studio in an ethereal glow that seemed almost otherworldly, so too did a gentle realization settle within his heart, a recognition of their enduring love and unwavering bond. This connection they shared was not just physical or emotional, but transcended the very essence of time itself, weaving its existence into every memory etched upon Julian's soul. Each laughter-filled moment with Eller echoed in his spirit like a melody that never ceased to play within him despite their parting. Even as he stood before her bedside one last time, their final silent exchange held only the weight of unspoken words and shared dreams for company. Julian felt it, deep down, where no earthly touch could ever reach, an eternal love that would forever resonate within his heartstrings. As Eller's fingers brushed against his own as if to affirm their union beyond time's veil, Julian knew they had found a shared destiny not just for the present, but one stretched out into infinity itself. And though he must journey onward alone in this tangible realm where all things come to rest or crumble under pressure of change, his soul would forever dance alongside Eller's within every whispering breeze that caressed her cheek, as Julian lifted himself from the bedside chair, their sanctuary, for an eternal love's final farewell. He took one last look around at their studio home, where once stood two hearts beating as one, now reduced to mere artifacts of what was and promises of a journey yet unwritten. With heavy but grateful steps that carried him towards the door leading out into tomorrow's uncertain dawn, Julian embraced his parting with Eller's understanding eyes, knowing their love story would continue beyond this mortal coil, etched forever upon time's endless canvas by two souls intertwined in a dance as timeless and beautiful as the stars themselves. In that final moment of departure from her studio, a refuge for one heart's half-shattered hope to find solace within another, Julian felt an invisible thread connecting him forevermore with Ella, weaving through his essence like golden strands in a loom where love and history intertwined. And as he stepped into the unknown beyond her studio's threshold, Julian knew that their souls would remain united beneath life's vast canopy, an enduring story of eternal companionship, painting its existence across every fiber of his being through shared silence, just like echoes in hallowed chambers. Julian stood silently for a moment in the doorway of Eller's studio as he turned to face his final farewell under this roof that had been their shared sanctuary, and witnessed to countless moments woven with love, laughter, sorrow, but always hope. The golden sunlight from beyond her closed curtains cast long shadows across the room, sepia-toned tableau of life's tender symphony they orchestrated together. Yet now it seemed as if time had ceased to play its melody here in this intimate space where once their hearts beat with unwavering unity. In his hand Julian felt Eller's warmth, her delicate fingers that he often traced when words failed her during those midnight confessions of fear and dreams beneath the celestial expanse projected upon an old blackboard wall where they charted their hopes with chalky arcs. As tender as his touch was, it did not disrupt the comforting silence enveloping him, a hushed reverence for this sacred place that he could no longer share in its entirety without her presence by his side to fill those gaps left behind where Eller once stood, her laughter echoing softly like whispers of joy caught within myriad sunbeams. The studio, with walls adorned not just with paintings and sculptures that told silent stories more eloquent than words could capture, but also framed letters they had penned to each other when time felt infinite testament of their shared existence and artistic expression, now seemed like a mausoleum encasing the essence of what was no longer tangible. A portrait half finished on Eller's easel bore witnesses not only to Julian's departure, but also to an imminent parting that had quietly unfurled its delicate petals amid their shared reality, a gentle revelation inseparable from the end of one chapter and yet eagerly anticipating another. Julian recalled his first steps into Eller's world, soft humming tunes she played on her grand piano that seemed to serenade him home as much as he had welcomed this melody within their hearts, a crescendo of affection now waning with the fading notes. The studio, once vibrant and teeming with creative fervor like an incubator for tender souls seeking solace in shared creation, echoed Julian's footsteps as he approached Eller's easel, where she had begun her latest masterpiece, a painting that promised to be their last together. As his eyes met hers across the canvas of existence and time, they were about to transcend beyond mere mortal reach. A silent acknowledgment passed between them, unspoken yet understood in its depths, as profoundly intimate as any sonnet or ode composed on paper under their very fingertips. Julian's gaze lingered upon the masterpiece, a landscape bathed in twilight's hues, where two silhouettes stood side by side, seemingly eternal, a poignant reminder that despite partings and distances they had transcended more than one could fathom. In this final chapter of their shared narrative within these walls, a refuge for the lingering warmth from Eller's fingers upon his cheek as he left her studio to enter a world where Sunner Zero Wness awaited him anew. Julian felt not just heartache, but gratitude for every second spent in each other's company. The air seemed saturated with their shared breath, the intangible threads of fate that wove through them like golden filaments binding two spirits across life's tapestry, a testament to love transcending earthly bounds and time itself. Bowing respectfully before its conclusion, within this chapter's closing, with a sigh brimming with unshed tears, Julian lifted his chin towards the sky beyond her studio window, an expanse that promised new horizons, yet concealed countless unknown depths beneath their azure veil, or paradoxical echo of Eller's own spirit and essence. He felt a kinship not just with this enduring space they called home, but also with the eternal sky above, where stars whispered secrets to those who knew how to listen. Tales Julian had often shared under her watchful gaze in these very moments when night surrendered its reign back to daylight's tender embrace. He took a step closer toward Eller's easel one last time before turning away, his departure imminent, but not without leaving behind the echoes of laughter and shared silences that once painted every corner with invisible strokes. Julian stood motionless at her studio window as Eller's paintbrush danced one final time across the canvas, capturing what seemed like their last shared sunracer golden hue that mirrored his own reflection in its warmth, but also promised an imminent end to this chapter of life. He took a step closer toward her easel before turning away, not just because he had said goodbye to Eller, the woman whose spirit was as indomitable and ethereal as dawn itself, but for one final act that felt like both closure and farewell from within his own soul's confines. As Julian crossed the threshold of her studio doorway into their shared home once more, he paused to glance at Eller's canvas left unfinished in its vibrant splendor, a silent testament as much about love as it was an ode to transience and impermanence, an artist's last gasp before the final curtain call. The studio door closed with more significance than just signaling Julian's exit, but also marking this era of togetherness drawing its inevitable conclusion into history. The living room became a stage for reminiscences as he and Eller replayed their favorite memories amidst the soft glow of her grandfather clock or timepiece that had stood sentry over countless shared hours, now ticking away seconds towards an irreversible divide in Julian's life. Each chime seemed to echo a different moment they had lived together, each strike resonating with laughter and whispers exchanged beneath the watchful gaze of star-filled Skeezer night sky that promised infinite possibilities like Eller's art, yet held secrets as deep and dark as uncharted waters. Julian felt a kinship not just within these walls they had come to call home, but also with every aspect of the eternal horizon beyond her studio window, where azure depths concealed unknown mysteries beneath their tranquil surface, or paradoxical echo of Eller's own essence. This connection ran deep, binding them as much inseparably as it bound Julian to his final moments within this chapter's closing embrace. Amid the calmness that now enveloped him like a warm blanket on an autumnal evening, he felt not just heartache for their shared future, but gratitude for every second spent with Eller was imprinted upon Julian's very being, her eyes reflecting his own soul and understanding of love as transcendent as any celeste's. Tales whispered to those who could listen. He took one last look around the room, feeling its familiar embrace that had witnessed their life together unfold like an open book on whose final page he was reluctant yet destined to turn alone from now onward, with every corner of this house echoing invisible strokes left by laughter and shared silences. Julian sighed, his breath intermingling for the last time within these familiar confines, carrying away a piece of Eller's essence as though scattering seeds across fertile soil or poignant goodbye to their intangible threads that had woven through life's tapestry. In this moment between breath and memory, Julian felt his heart heavy with the weight of her presence, for even in departure he found solace knowing she was now free from earthly bounds, amidst celestial wisps for spirit transcending time itself, to join the eternal dance among stars that told stories far beyond human comprehension. With a resolve as steady as it was somber, Julian collected his belongings and prepared for this next sunrise, one he would greet alone without Eller's shared breath by his side, but also with an understanding of the world's cyclical nature that welcomes both daybreak and dusk. As evening approached once again within these walls, Julian found solace in knowing that, like all good stories told beneath a canopy of twinkling constellations, this chapter, too, would come to its natural close with an ending as gentle as the first light touching upon dew-laden petals at dawn. In his departure from their shared sanctuary, Julian left behind not just memories, but also imprints her legacy of moments that transcended time itself within these walls and under skies where stars had once listened in quiet reverence to the tales he would never tell again, for they were stories meant only for whispered breaths between two souls forever entwined. Julian's final steps out into the embrace of a world that awaited his sunrise anew felt not just like departure, but